What's going on, people? It's your boy, Wheezy. Not really. I'm Dylan Denmark. Graham Marsh will be beside me here in a second. Send it up here on the iPad, on the Facebook. We'll be up on YouTube on 1010XL here shortly after. It's a Thursday, May 23rd, which means your boy's got a spring game as I'm decked out in my, I call it a visor. Les Miles calls it an open hat. I don't know. Cool stuff here going on. We got the NBA playoffs going on. We got an NCAA football game to discuss. Jaguar OTAs was this week. I know we talked a little bit about Nielsen and Doug Peterson. Nothing much has really changed. Not a lot has came out of it. Catch the interviews with the one-on-ones with Mitch Morse, Ronald Darby, and what was the other interview? Devon Hamilton from Mia O'Brien, Hayes Carline, and Rick Ballou. That's on 1010XL if you go to the video tab. Grant, what's up?
What's going on, sir? Had some issues with this chair.
Yeah,
trying to fix this
a little
chair.
short.
Yeah,
a little short guy.
I'm already short. Like, I'm used to being low to the ground. So if the chair feels short to me, then it's really short.
Grant, let's start with this. So I was listening to Michael Lombardi. He was an executive, a scout for a long time in the NFL. He now does. I forget who he's with. He was with VEASAN. He might still be with VEASAN. But I heard him on a podcast.
Lombardi, he's on Get Up like all the time.
Okay. He was on a podcast, 3 and Out, with John Middlecoff, who I listen to a lot on YouTube. And he was talking about, constructing your team. Okay. So the Jags this year, we talked about your needs. The needs were receiver, in no order, receiver, corner,
interior offensive
lineman, D lineman, getting another DB, getting somebody in the slot, and that nature. So Michael Lombardi, he's been around the league in a long time, been around Bill Walsh, Belichick, anybody under the realm of the NFL, he's been around them the last 30, 40 years. And he said, the way you construct a team, it starts with the offensive line and the defensive line, and everything else builds around that. So that was kind of the way I was like, okay, that makes sense. I agree, offensive line. Then he goes, out of all the needs, receiver is the last need you have. And then John Middlecoff cut him off and he said, do you think receiver has changed, since the 80s and the 90s? It's more of a prominent position now with the way the offense. He goes, I don't think it is. He says, Green Bay is the youngest team at receiver. They have no money spent. I think they're the youngest and they're the cheapest at that position, and everybody's good there. You have Kansas City. Granted, they have Patrick Mahomes, but they had Tyreek Hill. They said deuces to him. They still won Super Bowls. And he kind of rattled off, and I was like, I agree with the vast majority of what he said. I still think, though, that you need a receiver. And the reason I brought this up was because in Jacksonville, we have Christian Kirk, and then we went out and grabbed Gabe Davis, paid him some money, and then we spent a first-round pick on Brian Thomas. It seems like if Lombardi were, in charge, not that he would in Jacksonville, he wouldn't have even speculated on getting a receiver in the first round. I kind of threw a lot at you. You can take that however you may. I just thought that was interesting the way he kind of unpacked that.
It's just is the receiver position a foundational building block for your team, or is it not? Basically is the question, right?
Yeah, he said no. He said of all the needs, you address receiver last.
Is it icing on the cake, or is it meat and potatoes? Basically is what we're saying.
Pretty much.
We deal with this all the time, and this happens every year, right? So whatever team wins the Super Bowl, after they win the Super Bowl, we look at them and we look at their DNA and their blueprint, and we say, okay, that's how you win. That's the formula to winning. That's how you're supposed to do it. But look over the last 5 years, there's been different ways of doing it, right? After Brady won in 2020 and Stafford won in 2021, there was this thing about veteran quarterbacks, right? Free agent quarterbacks instead of rookie quarterbacks. Don't draft them, go pay a guy with experience and build a team around him, and that's how you're going to win. Well, after that, you had Mahomes win again with the team he was drafted on. So then it was like, okay, maybe it is draft a quarterback, build through him, whatever. to your point, they let Tyreek Hill go. The Chiefs had kind of this ragtag group of wide receivers. Okay, so maybe you don't need an alpha wide receiver one to win it all. Okay, well, I mean, in 2021, Cooper Kupp was definitely a wide receiver one. He won Triple Crown, and the Rams won. The Rams would not have won that Super Bowl without Cooper Kupp. The team they played against had Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd on it. The year before the Bucs won the Super Bowl, they had Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. So,
yes, they're good, but how much of an impact do they have if you were to get just an average backup at that position? Do you think there's that much of a drop-off from the best of the best and Jamar Chase and Mike Evans compared to give me a middle-of-the-road receiver and a Zay Jones or
Christian Kirk?
Or Christian Kirk. Do you think it's that much of a difference to where a team that wins the Super Bowl, and if they don't have them, they make the playoffs but win one game?
I think it can be. I think for put it this way, for most quarterbacks, yes. For Patrick Mahomes and Tom Brady, no.
Okay.
And Mahomes and Brady have dominated the last 20 years of football, so I think they've warped our view a little bit on how much help a quarterback needs at weapons. And also, we always say this about the Chiefs. We always talk about how they don't have great receivers, but we forget that they have arguably the greatest tight end of all time to throw the ball to.
That's true. And also, he also mentioned, talking about their offensive line, yes, that's correct. They don't have a stud. They don't have like a Trent Williams or like a Tyrone Smith that was really good for Dallas for a long time. But he said after they lost to the Raiders, I think that was on Christmas Day, after that point moving forward, whatever Pacheco averaged throughout the season, they added 7 carries more to what he was getting beforehand every game from then on because the offensive line was good. You saw that from Kansas City. Like, if you remember watching the games they had in the playoffs, they ran the ball, and like that was their identity. I don't think it was because, everybody's dropping back and, it's Mahomes, we got to make sure he's good. Like, no, that was who Kansas City was. People forget, like, they weren't really that good in December. They were going through a losing stretch. The same thing with Baltimore. Buffalo started to change their season once they gave the ball to James Cook and started being more physical up front. It was the reason why Dallas wasn't good last year, and they got pounded by Green Bay in the first round because Green Bay went 75 yards on that first drive of the game, and when Aaron Jones, boom, 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 and Dallas had no run game. So kind of that's where I kind of felt, if Jacksonville wants to win the division and they want to get to where they were 2 years ago, they have to get more to that aspect rather than what everybody's been talking about. And, Brian Thomas has to have 900 yards and 6-7 touchdowns. And I'm not of that belief. I still think it's meat potatoes. You got to be able to run the ball. Hopefully get another running back in there besides Etienne that can give him a blow every now and then. And you build from there as opposed to getting Gabe Davis, Brian Thomas Jr., Christian Kirk in the game.
Well, and yeah, the receiving stats only tell part of the story. Like, would you rather have Brian Thomas have an inefficient 1,000-yard season? Inefficient meaning they're forcing the ball. They're down in the second half in a lot of games, so they're having to throw it every play. Would you rather him get 1,000 yards that way, or would you rather him get 750, 800 in an efficient offense that's winning and running the ball well, and they win 10, 11 games and make the play? Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, whatever. To answer that, whatever helps the team makes the team win. That's simple,
right?
It's not.
And to go back to like Calvin Ridley's season last year, sure, he had 1,000 yards. First of all, 1,000 yards doesn't mean what he used to with a 17-game schedule. And secondly, was that an efficient 1,000 yards? Was that like, and this is no knock on Ridley. I mean, you can only do what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to go run routes and catch. But I'm talking about in totality of the offense. Was it a win that he got 1,000 yards, or was a big reason he got those yards because Travis Etienne was averaging less than 4 yards a carry, right? Wouldn't you have rather had him get 850 for the season and trade some of those yards back for Travis Etienne to average 4.5 a carry? And they're a lot more physical up front, like you're saying. They're running the ball more effectively. They're probably up in some of these second halves instead of down. And that results in some less stats for who the wide receiver one was last year, which was Calvin Ridley. But as a result, you have a more well-rounded offense. And I agree with that 100%. And I get Lombardi's point on that in terms of like, look, it's more for the Chiefs, like it's more important that Isaiah Pacheco gets going and can consistently pick you up 4 to 5 yards than it is Rashee Rice gets going, right? We'd love for Rashee Rice to get going, but you know what I mean. That said, would the Eagles have made the Super Bowl 2 years ago if instead of A.J. Brown, they had Gabe Davis? I don't know. I tend to think no. Would the Bengals have made the Super Bowl in 2021 without Jamar Chase? I think absolutely not. So it's just like, I get the point. I get that tons of people, fans especially, do overrate wide receivers in terms of what they want wide receivers to get paid and where they want them to get drafted. I totally understand that. But I just think that we love to do this in the media, which Lombardi's been in the media for a while now. We love to do this in the media. We love to do this as fans. We love to find one cookie cutter way that, like, this is the way you win. And there's more than one way to win, man.
Yeah,
like,
I think it's more of we just live in a fantasy football world, and we always look at, like, for example, I work with Hacker. How many times we talk about a game before the game's, being played during the week, and he's like, I'm talking like I said, like I like this, and he likes that. He goes, well, who
like a Thursday night game,
and he'll go, well, who are the receivers? He'll go, would you rather have this guy or that guy? I'm like, that's not the way a game is won. It's just, like, for example, Stephon Diggs goes to Houston, everybody loses their collective mind. Okay, if Stephon Diggs is this great talent and he's so coveted, why did two teams want to move on from him in the last couple of years? It's because, of everything off the field, and he wants the ball and go down the list. I don't know. I just thought it was interesting, and I kind of agreed with the point, and I just kind of wanted to bring it up on the pod.
I agree with it. Like, I'll say I agree with it like 60% of the way.
Okay. I'm more about 80, 85.
Again, I just don't think it's a cookie cutter. Like, an alpha wide receiver one can certainly help you win football games and can certainly be like, you just can't tell me that Jamar Chase is not part of the reason the Bengals have had so much success in the last few years, with the exception of last year because Joe Burrow got hurt. But you just can't tell me that if they had, I don't know, if they had, who's another mid-wide receiver? We've been using Gabe Davis.
Just across the league. Drake London.
Drake London's, I feel like, is good, though.
He is, but he hasn't been really used. Calvin Ridley. He's kind of up there.
All right, let's say instead of Jamar Chase.
Tank Dell.
Yeah. Instead of Jamar Chase, they have Tank Dell. Do the Bengals go all the way to the Super Bowl in 2021? Do you think they do? Because I don't. I think there's no way. They might make the playoffs.
Go to the AFC Championship game.
With that absolute horrendous offensive line, you think they go to the AFC Championship without Jamar Chase? I don't think so.
Probably not that team, no.
I think they maybe are like a first round exit in the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just something that we could have.
The AFC around. North was kind of weak that year. Yeah. That was part of why they were able to make the run. But
so the Florida Gators were in the news earlier this week. Rashada is suing. Is he suing him for $13 million? Is that the correct number?
I don't know what he's actually suing.
Okay,
for.
It's a lot of money. I think it was $13 million. I'll be honest, I really don't care about the story unless something actually happens. It's just a court filing, and anything can go to court. And this is something that's going to happen a lot. We saw Quinn Ewers go initially to Ohio State, skip his senior year, take money there, and then dip and go to Texas. We saw an Alabama offensive lineman leave, go, I think it was hometown in Iowa, get paid, stay there for a month, get the money, and then go back to Alabama. But this is the first one that we've seen from Rashada and in the entire sport where somebody is suing a team or coach or a collective. What did you want to get into specifically on this topic?
I mean, we just hadn't talked about it yet, so just kind of a 10,000-foot view. I wasn't trying to get like super in the weeds, but basically Jaden Rashada is suing, I guess it's 1, 2, it's 3. He's really suing 3 parties. He's kind of suing 4. He's suing the former recruiter that was on staff, is it Castro Ortiz, however, whatever his name is. I forgot his name, but he got fired after this. So he's no longer part of Florida's program in general. He's working for the Raiders now, if I saw correctly. He's suing him, who, whatever comes of that shit, I don't believe will be consequential for Florida necessarily, because that guy got fired after this whole deal. He's suing Hugh Hathcock, who's a huge booster for the Gators. You're familiar with Hugh Hathcock and who that is. Hugh Hathcock's former company, which was part of this deal but has now been sold to a bigger company. So I guess you're kind of suing the bigger company. And then Billy Napier. Billy Napier is obviously the one of consequence here. The other ones they'll sue, it's highly possible that Hugh Hathcock and the company that absorbed his will might just write Rashada and his father, who's heavily involved in this, a check to make this go away on their part. Not sure how it's going to go for the recruiter. It really what matters in terms of how it would affect Florida is if Billy Napier will be in any sort of trouble or anything, or have to pay Rashada any type of settlement or whatever. And it's really, honestly, I don't know that the NCAA in any way could get Billy Napier in trouble for this. I think it'd more just be he would have to pay Rashada some type of settlement, which would be weird. That'd be the first time in the history of football that a coach against a player that he's going to have to play against this season. I mean, Rashada probably won't play, but you know what I mean, just be on the roster. He'd have to pay him money. That has to be the first time that's ever happened in the history of college football. It's really more of an image thing, and to me, it's a bad look and a bad story for the Gators, but man, I don't know that this really affects them going forward, because anyone that's involved in Gator recruiting now, whether it be a commit, whether it be boosters that are giving money to the new collective, everyone that's involved in that kind of thing now knows that everything after this Rashada deal was pretty much, ties were all severed there, and they've moved on since then. Like the Gator Collective and the Gator Guard, which were the two collectives back then, no longer exist. They've been dissolved. It's now all Florida Victorious, which is a totally different group, totally different leadership. Hugh Hathcock, I'm not really sure what his involvement is right now. I think he is involved in Florida Victorious, but obviously he's not in a leadership role. And then Billy Napier's doing everything through them now.
I mean, here's the question: if Florida's 10-2, 11-1, and competing for SEC titles, is this that big of a story?
No. Is
it that big of a story?
No.
The answer is no. So it feels like it's more of a piling on. Is it a bad thing? Yes, because it's all, he said, she said, I was expected to get this. No, you weren't. And then you got to go through the legal issues, and then was there a contract, and what was exactly in the contract if there was one. I just don't want, and I know, you hear this all the time from, nobody that's young, but I just don't want this to be the off season of college football where a high school senior was expected to get allegedly $13 million. That is insane. Like, if Arch Manning had a shot at coming to Florida and he was as advertised, if I were a booster, I feel like the most I'd give him is like 1.5 or 2 million at max.
Well, you're not getting him then,
right? And that's the thing. It's like
it's kind of like NFL free agency. Like it's easy to say I'm not going to pay this guy this because that's not what he's actually worth.
Well, that's a little different because.
Well, but your market value is what someone's willing to pay you.
That's correct.
And then whatever someone is willing to pay you, that becomes the floor of your market value. If you are totally committed to just being in a bidding war, which Rashada was. Basically, what's for people that aren't aware, the way that Billy Napier is lumped into this, because the University of Florida is not. That's an important distinction. The University of Florida,
that would have been an NCAA violation if that were the case.
The University of Florida, Scott Strickland, they are not involved in the parties being sued by Rashada and his dad. Billy Napier as an individual is. That's the difference here. So it's not Florida. It's not Scott Strickland. It's not the athletic department. It's not the University of Florida in any way, shape, or form. It is just Billy Napier himself. Why is he part of this? Essentially, Jaden Rashada is suing for fraud. Fraud meaning he was promised this money, this I think it's $13.8 million that was going to be paid over 4 years. He never received any of it. What he received was $150,000 to pay back John Ruiz, which he received as, but he had to pay John Ruiz back to get out of his Miami contract, which is like an $8 million NIL deal. He obviously says thanks, but no thanks to John Ruiz, flips his commitment to Florida because Florida offered him 13 when Miami only offered him 8. So that's when he decided I'm going to flip my commitment because that's $5 million extra dollars. And he was contractually on the hook with John Ruiz in Miami for $150,000. That was basically his buyout to get out of the deal and flip somewhere else. So Hugh Hathcock at the time said, no problem, I'll take care of that for you. I'll wire you $150,000, pay John Ruiz. That's it. So Hugh Hathcock did pay him that. That did happen. Outside of that, it's leading up to NIL. You remember this day. It was early signing day of 2022, and Jaden Rashada hadn't signed his NLI yet.
It was like 5 p.m., 5:30, when everybody's usually done by about 3
Everybody else is signed. It was a whole thing, right? So after this, Billy Napier has his typical press conference for after early signing day to talk about everybody they sign, yada, yada, yada. Every coach does this. Billy Napier was an hour late to his press conference.
It was an hour?
He was an hour late.
I thought it was 30 minutes, okay.
He was an hour late. Between the time he was supposed to meet with the media and an hour later, Jaden Rashada signs his NLI. Okay, so clearly Billy Napier is doing something in this time, right? What happens in that hour is like the crux of Billy Napier's involvement in this. According to the Rashada camp, why Billy Napier is lumped into this, why he is lumped into this fraud in terms of being promised this amount of money and not being given it, is because when Jaden Rashada had not signed the NLI yet, Hugh Hathcock told him, sign the NLI, I'll wire you $1 million right now, basically. Billy Napier, apparently, according to Rashada, confirmed that this would happen. He's like, yeah, Hugh's good for it. Go ahead and sign. So that is the statement that Billy Napier said that Rashada is suing him for, basically saying he lied to me. So the problem is, though, with the recruiter that was on staff and Hugh Hathcock, between Rashada, there are text message screenshots proving a lot of this stuff they're saying.
Okay, that's true, but okay, that can all be fine, but was there a contract and was it signed by both parties? Because everything is all hearsay, and I can do this and I can do that. And hey, if you come to this company, I'll give you money. We're just talking.
Right. So that becomes the crux of the case. Is the evidence they have of them talking and promising Rashada this money, is that enough to be fraud?
Do you think anything's going to come from this?
To be honest, here's what I think is going to happen. I think that particularly because Hugh Hathcock's former company, which is now absorbed by someone else who had no involvement in this, I think that they're probably just going to say to Hugh, look, man, pay him a settlement.
Be done.
Let's go away. Yeah, let's get this over with. And I think with Billy Napier, is going to deny this. And I think the key here is there's screenshot evidence from the Rashada camp from the other parties involved of them promising them something that they did not receive. If they had screenshot evidence from Billy Napier, best believe they would have put it in there. And they don't. It's not there. So I don't think they're going to be able to actually put Billy Napier on the hook for anything in this case, because there's no hard evidence they even have. So to me, what's going to happen is they're going to come to some type of settlement. I don't know, a couple $1 million or whatever, that probably a combination of the recruiter that was on staff, Hugh Hathcock, his old company, whatever, they're probably going to concoct some money together, pay him a settlement, and be like, hey, look, man.
There you go. Here's your money. Be done.
Here you go.
Move
Can
on.
we please not do this anymore?
All right. Yeah. I think that's the worst case. I think the best case. I think I'd probably lean. I'm just guessing here. I don't have any insight. I haven't read a lot. That it's just all he said, she said. Nothing happens in court, and then both parties move on. The NBA, Graham. We got conference finals. I am like all in on the Dallas and Minnesota series. I have like
You are?
yes.
Why weren't you all in on Dallas Nuggets?
I was half tuned in because I was in track season and I'm coming in late. I mean, I watched every minute of that. Boston, Indiana, I have like on a scale of 1 to 10, like a 2 interest in that.
It's
Even
not
though
as
like
fun
the
of a
ending was
series.
good. Like the NBA is all about stars, and like there was a point in the Boston Indiana game. I forget when it was. I looked on the court and I was like, I don't know half these players. Like I know the stars, like I know Tatum, Brown, Horford, and then I know a couple of the Pacers. Like I don't know what it is. I just don't have any interest in Boston, Indiana. But Dallas, Minnesota, it looks like to me the winner of that series is going to win the finals.
Celtics are pretty damn good.
They are, but
and they're going to get Kristaps. And they're going to get Kristaps.
Disappears too much for them to be good. Tatum in the last game, in game 1, I looked at the box score. He had a field goal with 10 minutes left and didn't get his next field goal until overtime started. In a game where it was close the entire fourth quarter. Like, you can't have that production from your best player.
The problem is, in terms of, like, really, really, really important contributors on the team, when Kristaps Porzingis is healthy, the Celtics run the deepest out of any of the 4 teams left.
So when's he supposed to come back? Or is it all speculative? He's supposed to be out for the first 2 games. So
It's speculative.
Game 1.
It's speculative. He'll return like game 4 of this series.
Okay.
But when Kristaps plays, the Celtics run 4 deep in terms of guys that could like take over at least a few minutes of a game. Jason Tatum, Jaylen Brown, Kristaps Porzingis, and Derek White. Derek White's been really, really, really good for them. The Pacers, it's really just Halliburton.
And he had key turnovers that were late in the game.
And the Pacers don't. The Pacers have the worst defense left in the playoffs, which always rears its ugly head this time of year.
Which is why Minnesota's doing pretty good.
Yeah. The Minnesota has the best defense left. The Mavericks, in terms of takeover guys, they run 2 deep, Kyrie and Luka, but it might be the 2 best guys in terms of scoring to take over. And the Timberwolves, it's really scoring-wise. Rudy's not a scorer. Rudy Gobert is not really he's not going to give you 25 a game and take over in that way. He's more of a defensive presence. He's a defensive player of the year for a reason. It's really Anthony Edwards and then Karl Anthony Towns at times.
Which he was going off at times last night. Like there was a couple of like points in the game where it was just like you're like, whoa.
If it weren't for him, they would have lost game 7 against the Nuggets.
Yeah.
And Anthony Edwards was 6-24, and Karl Anthony Towns was the one keeping them in the game, especially in the first half. They were down, I think, 13 going into the half. Game 7 against the Nuggets, they'd have been down 25 if it weren't for Karl Anthony Towns keeping them in it.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards, even though like he didn't have a good game 7 statistically, and he only scored 16 points, whatever it was, like his impact is still there and it's still massive. Usually in the NBA, it's are you getting points? And really, like if you're not getting points, it's hard to have an impact. Like you clearly saw like him taking the dude at half court and like being a problem on defense. Anthony Edwards is by far and away my favorite player in the NBA now. Just the way the dude plays.
He's mine too. I love watching him.
And it's not even close. And there's this whole talk about the face of the league and all that. I really don't care about that. Because there's just so many other things being the best player in the league. You have to want to do like a lot of stuff and talk to the media a lot and not do dumb things, and not that anything Edwards does or Luka. Like, because I heard Kenny Smith, he said that the winner of this series, this will be the face of the league. If Luka wins, it's going to be him, and if Anthony Edwards wins, it's going to be him. regardless, I think Boston probably wins about 5 or 6, probably 5, and I think Minnesota Dallas probably goes 7, and then it all comes down to, I don't know if home court matters because it hasn't mattered in some series, but whoever has their legs with them in the last 5 minutes of that game.
Well, what makes it fun is this is whatever the finals ends up being, assuming that the Celtics are in it. The Pacers would not fit this category, but let's assume the Celtics are going to win the East because they are going to win the East. With either Minnesota or Dallas, it's the closest to a coin flip finals we've had in a while, which is fun. It's not like like last year. Denver was such an overwhelming favorite over.
Yeah, I'm trying to think
Miami.
of the last coin flip. I want to go back to LeBron and the Cavs when they played the Warriors.
That might be it.
Because Golden State was a favorite over Toronto, and then the bubble was whatever. Giannis, who'd they play when Milwaukee won?
Phoenix.
They beat. Okay, yeah.
That was probably the
yeah. So that was probably the last one.
I think it went to 6.
Yeah, it did.
For sure that went to 6. Yeah, that was probably the last one. That was some time ago now. That was 2021. 2022 was the Warriors. They beat they beat the Celtics. That series went to 6, but they beat them relatively handily. And then 2023 last year, the Nuggets were such an overwhelming favorite over the Heat. It's just I like unless LeBron's in it because I love LeBron and I root for him. Other than that, when I watch the NBA playoffs, I love the NBA playoffs. I root for whatever will make the finals the most interesting. Whatever is the closest to 50-50 in the finals is what I want the most.
So here's the question. Let's go a couple minutes before we talk about the inside the NBA crew. Is it good for the NBA that they're having a different winner every year and that there's nobody that's dominant?
Yes.
Not even a thought.
Yes.
Okay. So you wouldn't rather have LeBron and Steph continuing what they've done the last couple of years, or?
I love LeBron, but I think it's good for the league. It's good for young fans to see other guys. It's just LeBron and Steph both just have aged so well that it was like, my God, they met each other year after year after year in the finals. And then after that, LeBron got another one and Steph got another one. It's like, I think it's nice that Anthony Edwards is getting shine. It's nice that Luka Doncic is getting shine. It's nice that Jason Tatum has been here before, but the Celtics in general are getting some shine. Tyrese Halliburton, some new blood is good. And we always see this. We see this in the NFL too. Every maybe 10 or so years, there's kind of a clear pivotal year where there's sort of a passing of the torch. And I think that was last year in the NBA with I think when the Nuggets swept the Lakers. And Jokic was just so obviously the best player in that series. I think that was kind of a clear handing off of all right,
they're here to stay.
That, and I think it's no longer reasonable to assume that Steph or LeBron are going to be in the finals every year. One of the two of them.
Okay. I'll tend to disagree, but we'll move on to the last topic we got before I run out of here. The inside the NBA crew with Shaq Barkley, Ernie, and Kenny the Jet Smith. It's rumored it's probably going to happen that NBC is going to get the NBA again, so it's going to be ESPN and NBC splitting the two coverages, and that kind of leaves the TNT out of luck.
Because if there's no games, there's no inside the NBA.
Right. I don't care what needs to be done. There's no way that this crew can dissolve and just go back to doing nothing. Especially now, I don't know about you, I don't care to watch any pre-game coverage on Fox or CBS from the NFL or the MLB. I know that you don't care to watch that much. This crew is the best. It's not because of their knowledge of ball. It's just because they're entertaining. And you don't see that anywhere else. In this day and age of where everybody's cutting the cord, and I just don't care to hear about who's going to have the effective pick and roll and who's going to play good defense. And same with the NFL. I don't care about matchups and, who can do well, coming off the edge or covering this guy. Like, that does not appease me at all. Like, I was watching it last night, and they were calling out the first team, all NBA, second team. And Barkley's like, let me get a first team. And Shaq goes, oh, okay. He's like, do you ever make first team? And they're going back and forth. And Barkley goes, shut up, you can't read. Like, it's just something dumb that, you don't see from anywhere else. You got to keep that crew together somehow, some point. I don't even care if I have to pay like a $15 subscription for Hulu or Sling or something that I know is not going to happen. You got to keep this crew together somehow.
Yeah, they're the best. They're the best studio sports show ever, right?
Yeah, not even close. I don't even know the two.
It's not even a debate. I mean, and the best one in my opinion is Charles, and then probably Shaq, and then Ernie, and then Kenny. But just in general, like, their chemistry is so good, and even when they are talking matchups and X's and O's, that they do it in an entertaining way, which makes it so fun. Neither of us, I would say, like I probably like basketball a little more than you, but neither of us are sitting there, like you said, neither of us are sitting there breaking down pick and roll matchups and talking about switches on defense and stuff like that. But I can watch them all night long. I can watch when Kenny does the sprint up to the board and talk, because it's entertaining. It's in an entertaining way that they do it. And I agree that somehow, some way, I'd love for them to stick together. I don't know how realistic that is, though. I mean, the NBC is going to want to have their own show.
Oh, and NBC is going to pay, like, I heard somebody, I think it was Colin Cowherd, that said that if NBC gets the NBA, which it looks like they will, they're going to write a check for $800 million that they're just going to lose every year. Like, it's going to be that much money. And they just want it just so they can have eyeballs on their network.
Yeah. And I don't know, if you're NBC, do you come up with your own show, or do you just hire them to come over and do it? Would Ernie leave Turner?
Well, because he would give a March Madness. What else does he do? Does he do a little bit of baseball on TBS?
I don't think so.
I don't think he does.
I don't think so. But the point is, like, the other three have been with Turner for a long time, and I know they love it there. But the other three are former players. They are on that broadcast because they're former players. Ernie worked his way up in the media business through Turner. He would be the one that I would tend to think would have more loyalty to the network. Versus the other three, I think they're former players
and they've obviously had their money.
And wherever they can post up and talk ball, they're going to do it, right? Ernie would be the one I'd be curious about. And then would you do Inside the NBA with those three players, and then just find a different host.
And just roll with it. We got to find something to where they stick together. Barkley said that. I think he said today, he went on Dan Patrick. I didn't see it exactly, but he basically said something along the lines of the people that were in charge messed this up, and he's like, it's on them, and it hurts a lot of people because they love working with them, and I don't know, it's a sad part of the business.
That doesn't sound like a guy that thinks they're going to stick together.
Yeah, no. I mean, Charles Barkley said the other day, they were like, the All NBA is going to be announced tomorrow at 2:00, and then Barkley's like, he goes, we got to do this at 2:00. He goes, no. And Barkley's like, oh, okay, I was going to be on LinkedIn tomorrow at 2:00. So it's just like, which makes him the best. I got a roll, Graham. I got a spring game now at Sandalwood, not in the hood, but that's why I got an open hat on, the visor. Hopefully we can look clean, and I'll give you a full breakdown on this next pod.
I love it.
All right.
I need to know how the boys are doing.
Yeah.
By the way, one quick thing before we leave. For those of you that aren't aware, Dylan and I are on a flag football team together. Best flag football team in the city of Jacksonville.
Best in the nation. The best one team in the nation.
Man, it's taking me longer and longer to recover from these Saturdays, brother.
Dude, my thumb is not. I swear to you, like, the swelling's gone. All I did was put my hand on a dude's chest as he was crossing me, and I guess my thumb just went haywire. And I mean, like, this hurts on a scale of like 6 out of 10. Like, I might just rush Saturday, and I don't know. Like,
Dude, my groin still hurts from Saturday. My hamstring still hurts. My legs are still sore.
It's weird for me. I thought my legs would be bad. My legs ain't bad. It's just my stupid thumb.
Yeah.
And like your thumb, you know, this is how bad it is. And you're going to laugh and it's not funny, but it's funny. I cannot crank my car up with my right hand. I have to use my left hand and like get up and like, and the way my car is, cause I got a great, beater. I got a new crank sensor wire put in because my car shut down on me 2 years ago. So I got to use my left hand and I got to do it fast. It's like a boom. Like every time anybody uses my car, they're like, I can't crank it up. I'm like, just give it some oomph and it's good. Nobody else can do it. Only I know the trick and I can't do it with my right hand because my thumb is.
Oof.
Yeah. Anywho.
You got to start walking places.
Yeah. All right. That'll do it for us on this Thursday. We'll see y'all sometime next week. I'm Dylan Denmark. That's Graham Marsh. Peace.